And now, you're tuned in to RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's Reveler Sports.
Hello, everyone out there in Tampa Bay and beyond. This is James Knowles coming at you for the RBLR Sports podcast. And this week, I am covering the Rowdies, just like I usually do. I am here with my co-host Carlos, my esteemed co-host Carlos, that we had a great time with over this past weekend. Carlos, how are you doing on this Tuesday evening instead?
I'm doing all right, James. I'm doing all right. I love how you start off the podcast every week with "I'm here to talk about the Rowdies," as if we're doing something new. We're here to talk about it's a surprise. And every time I feel a little bit surprised, even though I remember I'm here to talk about the Rowdies as well. That being said, James, it's a decent Tuesday. Good day. Been studying for the LSAT. Went to the gym again. I feel like I'm getting back to a good grind. I'm feeling huge. Check the YouTube stream to see if you agree with me. The shoulders are coming in nicely. But yeah, feeling all right. Good Tuesday. Had a blast this weekend with you and Eureka and all the other RBLR folks and all the other people that showed up, listeners, friends, family, mutuals. It was a good time. It really was a good time. And I'm glad to be, I had a good time covering it live, pregame with you on YouTube. That was a blast. They are on site. I am back in the comfort of my own home, though, here recording before it goes out tomorrow. And yeah, we're back to normal here, James. How's your weekend? Tell us about what you thought about the RBLR watch party. I just recap that briefly. I thought that was a good time this weekend.
Yeah, I got there like 6:10, 6:15, and it wasn't, very packed then because it was early.
Sure.
And Eureka was still setting up so that we could make sure we could put the broadcast out beforehand. And, eventually I was paying attention to that more than I was the crowd. And I think at a certain point I turned around and I was like, when did all these people get here? It was pretty cool that way. I really liked the crowd that we had. I think that we had a great time. We're gonna get into all of that a little bit more as well as the actual game, but yeah, let's actually move forward with that. So yeah, Carlos, this past weekend, the Rowdies drew 0-0, very unfortunately for our watch party, versus Indy 11 away from home in Indiana. In the RBLR Cup standings, I think only Eureka got a point to go level with the guest on 15 because everyone else predicted a win. So well done to Eureka. And now he and the guest are leading the way. We also have a game to preview tonight. This week, the Rowdies are finally back at home again for Pride Night versus FC Tulsa. So a bunch of stuff to look forward to there, including apparently some very awesome socks at Al Lang Stadium. So yeah, a huge thank you before we get going to everyone who attended our watch party. Obviously, I brought some friends, I brought some family. Carlos, I think you brought some friends and some family. We had people who were just in the, in the Ralph's Mob Discord show up because they wanted to take part in the game and actually watch it as well. Yeah, it was wonderful. The beer that we had was good. I tried every single one that was on the, on the discount because a bunch of people got different pitchers, so I would take a little bit here, a little bit there, fair enough, make sure that I get a taste. And I think it was great. We're going to go over that a little bit more, but Carlos, do you have anything else that you wanted to cover there?
No, I again, similar to you, I was kind of leeching off of everybody else, tasting all the different beers that they had on special there. Special thank you to everybody at Berry House for making that happen and for giving us those specials just for us. How about that, James? Little RBLR specials for the watch party. Absolute blast, like I said before. We're going to talk about the game here in a little bit, but let's just say that if you weren't a Rowdies fan and you were watching that game, you probably didn't become one by watching that game. You probably became one by enjoying the watch party because we had a lot more fun at the watch party than I think I did watching the game, honestly. It was a bit of a dull one, but again, the watch party made it much more fun to watch in the company of great friends and family and listeners and Twitter mutuals and Rowdy's family. It was great. It was just seeing everybody chatting and getting to know each other. I think that's kind of the whole reason, this podcast kind of exists is to
everybody was talking. It was great.
Yeah, the whole reason, a podcast like this exists, a podcast like the Unused Substitutes exists is to connect the family, connect the Rowdies family, keep us all, talking, interconnected, keeping dialogue about this team going. And what better way to do that than doing that in person in a watch party? And again, it was just so cool to see kind of like that family being fostered in a very concrete way like that. Watching the game. So again, can't complain about that. It was an absolute blast. But yeah, I guess we can move on from that and talk about the game a bit more now. James, do you have anything else?
Just want to say very quickly before we actually get into that, please, of course, like and subscribe to us on YouTube where you can get the full experience, including watching our pregame preview, which we did from Berry House ahead of the game. And of course, please follow us on social media at RBLR Sports. We are pretty much wherever social media exists. And yeah, we had a great time at Berry House. Obviously, there's a ton of content now online from that, and Eureka was making sure that he got all of it. So I loved it, and I think that if you watch it, you will see if you didn't attend what you were missing out on, and if you did attend, you will see what there is to look forward to again in the future.
Yep.
But yeah, Carlos, let's get into the actual game that we were there to watch. The game that unfortunately did not exactly excite everyone. But
Yeah.
take us through the quick recap if you can.
Yeah, we came out with Connor Sparrow in goal as per usual. Antley, Kleeman, Lasso, and Guillen making up that back four, kind of reverting back to that formation we used at multiple points throughout the season. Jordan Doherty and Jake Arman kind of making up those more defensive midfielder positions. Jake Arman kind of adjusting to that pretty well, had a decent game in that spot. Looks like we could see a bit more out of him from that position. Should, a player like Zach Areva or Lewis Hilton not be coming back in the near future. Yeah, that being said, in front of them, you had Dalgard, Harris, and Charlie Dennis. Charlie Dennis seemed to be slotting back into that role that LaCava started in last week. And JJ Williams, the main man up top, played for 73 minutes before getting subbed out by Cal Jennings. Didn't see that duo on the field at the same time, unfortunately. Duo that I was excited to see get potential playing time together. But looks like Stuart Dobson had other ideas in mind. And yeah, there we go. That was the formation. It was a kind of 4-2-3-1 type situation. Not too different from what we've seen at multiple points throughout the season. Yeah, usually we break up the first and the second half by goals. There weren't any goals in this one. It was a 0-0 draw, nothing particularly crazy. That being said, James, you made a note here that the most prominent part of this game, I mentioned this player in the starting lineup, but he didn't play most of the game. Sebastian Dalgard got injured around the 34th minute and needed some assistance walking off the field. Not a great sign there. He's a player that's been kind of in great form throughout the season. Really consistent player. Always penetrating the other team's back line in the midfield, creating opportunities with his dribbling and his great passing and crossing abilities. So hopefully, I don't know anything, but hopefully he's all right. Hopefully he's not out for too long, if at all. We'll have to see what happens this weekend and see if he's in the injury report or not. But yeah, that's a big, big loss should he be out for a little bit. We have some guys on the bench that can replace him. Obviously, you have a LaCava that can kind of play on that side if needed. Harris can play on the wings, and you can kind of put LaCava where Harris is. So there's ways to fill in that gap should that be needed. Obviously, we hope for his good health and continued playing time because he's a big, big piece of this roster,
especially recently.
Yeah, exactly. As for chance creation, James, we mentioned it wasn't a particularly exciting affair. That being said, the Rowdies had 13 shots, which doesn't seem real, but they did. They had 13 shots, and Indy had 7 shots. We had 4 on target. They had 2 on target. We had 10 shots inside the box. Usually, you
really
look at that
weird
number.
That only 4 of those ended up on target. Then,
yeah, exactly. Usually, with a number that high, if you have double-digit shots inside the box, you're usually in a good place offensively. Unfortunately, the Indy back line was very stingy. They stepped in at the right points. They always made that last shot very difficult. They made the last pass difficult. They made every key pass difficult, and they had a very good game to their credit. The Indy back line played particularly well on the night and kept us from creating any, particularly dangerous chances. None of like the quote unquote big chances that
Right.
sometimes get cited by Fought Mob and whatnot. So again, nothing crazy. There's really not a lot of offensive opportunity to talk about in this game. Unfortunate in that way. But again, it's not that we weren't getting to the indie side. We were creating shots apparently. Nothing ended up in the back of the net for either team. And that was the end of the game, James. 90 minutes, nothing crazy. Unless you were at Berry House and you had a good time and you got like free giveaways and stuff and discounted beer. Maybe I'm very much advertising for the next one when there is one. Because even if it's not fun, the game, the watch party will be. So yeah, that was the full 90 minutes, James. Nothing crazy. Leave the road with 1 point before coming back home. I don't know. I mean, I saw a decent amount of positive, feedback from Rowdies fans on Twitter. Can't complain. Point on the road's a point on the road and whatnot. I would have hoped for a bit more personally against Indy, who was struggling a bit going into this game,
Yep.
but it is what it is. So with that being said, James, that was a long-winded, quick recap, supposedly. But let's jump into the analysis, I guess, here. What is there to talk about? I mean, how did that first half go? Did you see anything particularly dangerous? Anything that we created that you saw and gave you a bit of hope for the game? Any positives you see that we can take away from that first half?
Yeah, it was definitely a weird one. I think that
Yeah.
Indy kind of surprised in their shape a little bit. I saw. I will be honest. I did want a little bit of help on this one based off of, I watched it and I was just a little bit like, oh, where do I go with this? What was the kind of direction?
Yeah.
John Morrissey did help out as per usual, and he gave his conclusion as in the 11 kind of being in a 4-2-4. And upon watching it again, I was like, oh, okay, I can see that a little bit better. Obviously we were a little bit distracted during the watch party, but yeah, it was not super clear the first time around. So that did
Yeah.
help before I went and watched it again. I think that also it was, just, I think that the Rowdies were kind of lacking in certain aspects. It was a little weird how I think, we had players lining up in certain spaces, but they weren't always the spaces. Like, for instance, let's say Charlie Dennis. Charlie Dennis was not always like in a number 10 role. He was definitely just in a role that I think was a lot more. It looked like it was supposed to be the kind of roving role that Leo Fernandez had last year, but he wasn't getting on the end of enough of the passes into the midfield or enough of those plays. So that's kind of where I saw a problem, unfortunately. Because Charlie Dennis, if he's out there, he needs to be someone who is very involved. He needs to be someone who is, um, connecting play and getting more people into the game. I think that his influence was just not enough for whatever reason, and a lot of that did come down to the way that Indy 11 played. On the other hand, and this was another thing that I saw this originally, but John Morrissey highlighted it, and when I watched it again, I was like, "Yeah, okay, big time." Aiden Quinn for Indy 11, he was an extremely important player for them. I think that he did just so much with the ball, and also, on the defensive side for Indy 11, he kind of really helped to shut us down in a ton of ways. Um, Partially, with Charlie Dennis there, but yeah, it was just interesting to see the ways that we tried to get around the formation that they had set up. And I think that a lot of that came down to Sebastian Dalgard, who, as you said, he's been a very important player recently. He has had one or two of our man of the match awards in the last 2-3 weeks. I can't remember exactly how many offhand. Should be higher in the notes actually, but either way, yeah, Sebastian Dalgard going down relatively early. That's obviously not good for the Rowdies in general, but it's also not good for us to try and win a game where we're not having a ton of luck going down the usual routes that I would say we try to go, which includes often the press. I didn't see that we had a lot of luck there. I think that we
Sure.
were kind of not helping ourselves in that sense because Aiden Quinn's ability to take the ball and just kind of bypass the press. That was highlighted multiple times. I can't remember exactly, but I think I saw 2 or 3 in the first half. But yeah, he was just doing so well with that. Like, he would step back, and then the players that we had that were supposed to step in, they were going obviously in different directions and trying to cover other people, but that left Aiden
Yep.
Quinn all the time in the world almost to go and find somebody. So we just need to sort that out a little bit better. And on the other hand, to go back to the wingers, Dayon Harris, I don't think that Dayon Harris did exactly what I was looking for from him. And then with Sebastian Dalgard out, that kind of really hampered us, because if Harris is not getting exactly the production that we're looking for out of him, and then you have Sebastian Dalgard, who is the other player that we're supposed to be relying on going out, that's going to change things up, of course. And Jake Ehrman, I think that he was doing very well in his role, but I have really liked seeing him get used to his play on the wing recently. And whether that's at wing back or fullback or up the wing, I like that he's getting more consistent time out there. And then when he came back in the middle, it's not that he's a bad player in the middle or anything like that, but it does cut down on the options for someone out on the left wing, because he is so good when he's out there. So that was just one thing that I wanted to highlight. But what other big parts of this game did you see?
No, in the first half, there really wasn't much, James. Honestly, it was a stifled affair. There wasn't much going for either team. Honestly, I think Indy had more in the first half going for them than we did offensively. Not by a lot, but they had a couple, at least one decent shot that Connor Sparrow made a good save on that left side of the field. Going forward towards the end of the first half, if you recall, there was a pretty decent play, kind of what I was looking for earlier, and it was good to see that coming alive at the end of the first half. It was, a play down the right wing. It was facilitated by Jake Arman, like you just mentioned. He kind of carried that ball up the middle in that role, kind of in the central midfield, distributed it out to Dayon Harris, who took on a guy and put in a really great cross to the far post, where Jake Lukava was kind of sprinting in. And right on top of the 8-yard box is where he was able to get ahead on the end of the ball. That being said, he came in at a really, high speed. He had a guy on him, and he made contact. Had a chance to get that ball down, but ended up sending it high over the bar into the Indy, actually past the Indy supporter section. So ultimately, looking back and reading my notes here, I don't have any other offensive highlights from us from the first half. Like you said, the biggest piece of news in that half is probably Dalgard going down.
Yeah.
And again, really affecting kind of the dynamic that I think Stuart Dobson was trying to set out with this game. Because again, Lukava is a great player. It's not, he hasn't found his best game kind of playing where Dalgard's been playing, if that makes any sense.
Right. I would agree with that.
When Lukava came into the game, he replaced Dalgard, and we saw a couple moves, but Lukava is playing out in that position where Dalgard was kind of on the wing. And he's a decent player out there, but his kind of best soccer has been more as a striker. He can play on the wing, though. I'm not saying he can't. It's just when you have a change like that early in the game, like you said, it kind of does change the dynamic. It affects kind of your game plan. Takes a toll on the team, on what you were planning on doing when that happened so early. Early-ish in the 34th minute, right? That was it in the first half, honestly, James. Again, Connor Sparrow made a couple decent saves. I'm looking back and remembering, I actually just pulled out the highlights again to refresh my mind, because I remember there was a decent shot in the 26th minute is what it says here, that Connor Sparrow deflected over the bar. Great work from him. There was a couple of chances that Indy had.
A very good game, by the way.
Yeah. There was a couple of chances Indy had that were dangerous enough to challenge any decent goalie. And Connor Sparrow, being the great goalie that he is, kept the score 0-0 as it ended up, finishing, right? it could have been very different had he not had the good game that you mentioned. You know, he is one of the players that kind of naturally as a goalie gets overlooked when you talk about the game at the end of the 90 minutes. But he definitely deserves a shout out in this game because obviously we didn't score any goals. So his efforts back in our own box, helped us get that point at the end of the day. That was it for the first half for me, James. I don't have anything else to say in that first half other than every time I watch a game at that stadium in Indy, it kind of frustrates me a little bit because the main stand is like off center. You know what I mean? If you look at the stadium,
I didn't really think of that until
yeah,
yeah.
the main stand is like to the left of the midfield line on the on the field. Anyway, random tangent. A little weird, a little frustrating when I'm watching the game. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the first half. And if I'm throwing that in there, it kind of tells you I don't have much to say, honestly. Yeah, that was it. Let's jump into the second half, James. Do you have anything else you want to wrap up on the first 45, though?
No, I do want to say though, for anyone watching, I apologize for my moving the the laptop around and all this stuff. I would usually be at the desk, which is behind me, but it has stuff on it, so I am just making do for the time being. Either way, to move forward with
Yeah.
the second half. I think honestly, the second half was just kind of thrown off by more substitutions. I didn't really see that there were a ton of, what are the ways that it improved when we made the substitutions. That's kind of what you're
Mhm.
looking for with a sub. Like,
Mhm.
obviously everyone that you have to bring on is going to be different from the player that they're replacing. That's just the nature of things.
Right.
Obviously, you want to approach something such that when you are bringing on a substitution, you're going to make the game a little bit better and try to uh, change things up with that substitution and the new
Mhm.
player with their
Mhm.
new tendencies and everything. But you want to do it in a positive way, of course. And that's kind of it wasn't like um I don't know. I guess this sounds harsh, but I just didn't see that when people came on, they were doing something that was different, that was better. But it also, I mean, it wasn't heavy with substitutions. I think Indy only made two
Yeah.
in the second half. So it was just I didn't see that there was all of the quality in the world in this game, and that's just going to happen from time to time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't see that there was someone that we were going to bring on who was going to make something and go and change this game and turn it in our favor. That's kind of what I was hoping
Yeah.
for.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think Jake LaCava can do that. Obviously, I don't think he did, but we have seen him do that. We just need to kind of unlock him a little bit more and find the
Yeah.
right place for him. I don't know exactly where that is in this system, which is different from last year. Um, yeah. What about you? I mean, where am I? Maybe I'm overstepping with that, or is there something else that you wanted to highlight as well? Because my biggest thing watching the second half again was just like I want somebody to come on and kind of it's I guess that old English saying, I want somebody to take this game by the scruff of the neck and try and change it. And that really just didn't happen as far as I saw.
Mhm. Um, Remember that guy Ryan Spalding? I kind of miss him.
Exactly. That's
Anyway,
what we're kind of missing.
that being, I mean, that side note aside, that's what I've kind of liked. Deion Harris coming in as like a sub role in like the 50, not 50, but like late 50s, 60th minute or so. I feel like Deion Harris is good at being that guy that you just mentioned, being the guy that comes in and just is a game changer. Um, I would hate to be a defender that's played 60 minutes, 70 minutes of soccer, and you see
Right.
Deion Harris warming up on the sideline and coming in, checking in, and you knowing that he's going to be on your side of the field. I'd probably ask for a sub on the spot because this kid has insane energy, insane pace. He can dribble well. His crossing is good. You've seen it. Sometimes you wish it could be better. But he's a really good player, and he can pass the ball well. He can dribble well. He knows where to be. He's a smart player. And that's what I've advocated in the past for Deion Harris starting minutes. I think now we're a little bit thin on the wings, so maybe we don't have that flexibility. But I've really enjoyed in the past seeing him come on as a super sub and change the game. You kind of saw that in that Loudon game, looking back a few weeks ago. Him and it was Cal Jennings as well, right? That kind of came in at the same time, or they did come in at the same time, change the game. Again, we're a little bit thin these days, and I don't think you're going to start like Ariel Martinez or Lucky Nkosana over Cal Jennings if given the option.
Not at this point, yeah.
Yeah, and so you can't really think of Cal Jennings as a super sub at this point. Maybe you really can't think of Deion Harris in the same way at this point, given the potential injury to Dahlgard, potential, I guess, if he's out this weekend, to put it bluntly, I don't know. Yeah, so it's a little bit unfortunate because it feels like we don't really have that guy right now that can come off the bench and be like, oh yeah, he's gonna change the game, like he's scoring. You like to think of Nkosana as that kind of player just because of the legend he's created here.
Yeah.
Of being that guy in the big games. So maybe we just need to wait for the big games, I guess. I feel like Schroeder is back. He's healthy, by the way. He's a guy that hasn't really gotten any minutes, but a guy that I think has a lot of talent. And just based off what I saw of him and read up on him about him coming into the season and what he could bring to the table, he seems like a guy that could be a really good super sub once he's fully healthy. And I think he is at this point. So maybe we can see him develop into that role because, again, at this point in the season, I don't think you're going to see him beating out Cal Jennings or JJ Williams for a starting spot. Ariel Martinez showed signs of being that guy. Remember at the beginning of the season, he would come on the last 20 minutes and just run his out of his boots. He has that kind of energy. But again, I think you're kind of right. We're kind of maybe missing that energy off the bench that I really loved when, seeing you see Deion Harris warming up on the sideline and it's like, oh yeah, there's an assist coming at least or something. So maybe starting him is kind of affecting that. But again, I mean, there's a lot of like starting 11 movement with injuries and random loans and loans ending. So it's a weird time, and especially with an interim head coach, right? I can understand why it's been a bit weird and maybe the timing lines up that we've had back-to-back kind of dull offensive performances in that way. So yeah, that's all to say. Prayers up for Dahlgard because if he goes down and we're missing him for next game, like our options become a bit more limited, and the flexibility that we like to flex as the Rowdies, line with the roster we have this year, kind of goes out the window. Especially now we're racking that up on top of again an Aravo that's been injured, a Lewis Hilton that's been injured, two players that you have Lewis Hilton as a guy that is really good, and an Aravo as a player that I was really excited to see. And I was hoping he'd be on for most of the season. Zach Aravo was just really, really fun to watch when he was at Birmingham. Or I guess really annoying to watch when we played against him.
Yeah.
But just like really, really good player. I think kind of like Doherty is a great defensive asset. But I think maybe even a bit more than Doherty. He can get up the field and create some opportunity from kind of like his defensive midfield role. So again, we're missing just a little bit of offense. And I think it's kind of come to fruition these past couple weeks with these performances that, again, this doesn't seem too dissimilar from the game against Birmingham. We had a bit more chances in this game. Ultimately, we came up with the point in this game and not in Birmingham. So I don't know. I guess we can be a little happier in this game. But again, I think that's mostly to the credit of Connor Sparrow and the entire back line who had a good game. And Jordan Doherty as well, who again plays that defensive mid role and played it very well. Talking about the offense in the second half, we had more chances, like I mentioned. We had at least 3 pretty decent looks. But you mentioned this earlier. They weren't really like the style we play. They were all shots outside the box from tight angles, from the sides. And if you recall early in the half, Charlie Dennis had a really good looking opportunity of a ball that dribbled across the box. He was kind of on the right side of the box, whips a shot in with his left foot on a tight angle to the far post, actually beats the goalie, Odell. And I think it's a highlight that got overlooked because it felt like a pretty boring game. I don't think anybody went back to check.
I did not remember that at first, but you're right.
Yeah. No, shot actually beat their goalie. and it could have. You can't really tell from the angle, but there is a very, very good chance it finds the top corner. If it wasn't for Macaulay King, the Indy center back,
Yeah.
who was able to head it like barely. He got it with the top of his head and had that ball away just outside of the goal. So that was kind of like the main opportunity. You had a couple other shots again from outside the box. Jan Ekra at the end of the game in like the 94th minute. Jan Ekra had some space in the middle.
And as
Right
much as
up
I
the
do
field.
love Jan Ekra, I just don't expect that he's going to be the guy to
Yeah.
put those away, unfortunately.
It seems like there's a few times where like there's some space and you're like, oh my god, like it's the Jan Ekra moment. And it just feels like he doesn't really have like the power on his boot to actually like, beat the goalie. It always seems like it dribbles kind of into the goalie's hands or isn't a really particularly difficult shot to save. I say that as, a fan. I'm sure it's pretty difficult for the goalie. I'm sure I wouldn't be able to save it. But once he like kind of lets that shot fly, it never really seems like it's going to be danger for the opposing team. And I think like that was the case against Indy. I was like holding my breath for a second. I thought we were going to have the 94th minute winner in Berryhouse, and I was like, oh, never mind.
That would have been
So
tight.
it was that shot, which was a decent shot. Honestly, it could have been better, like I said, but it wasn't even that bad. Odell made a decent save on it. Charlie Dennis had definitely the best chance of the game with that shot from the right side of the field. And I'm looking back, it was, I believe it was LaCava who had the other chance I'm thinking of. And I'm looking back just to confirm that. It's around the 77th minute, 78th minute. LaCava had a decent shot again from just like on the edge of the box, technically inside the box, but on the edge of the box. Ripped a shot low. Odell made a great save, but it wasn't anything that you expect to go into the box or into the goal either. Decent shot, great save, and that was it. We created, I think, more dangerous opportunities in the second 45 than we did in the first half. But again, it wasn't our game. We were ripping shots from the edge of the box, which I love, by the way. Don't get me wrong. Like I've always said, we should do more of that. Like for the past 5 years, we've just never done a lot of that. So I'm glad we're doing that, but I don't want it to come at the cost of, kind of the game we've become accustomed to and the game we're good at, which is playing down the wing, penetrating the back line and putting in, the perfect cross for JJ Williams to head home or JJ Williams to tap home. But again, that's kind of probably a result of the Dahlgaard injury early on in the game as well. You like to see the effort. You like to see the energy. We tried in the second half. There's definitely no kind of feeling of we didn't want to win or anything. We could definitely tell that we were going for it. But again, to Indy's credit, they knew our game and they did really well to not let us play it. So unfortunately, at least for the time being, we'll split the series with Indy. I guess not even split it. We just tied both games. So we'll see if we see them in the playoffs. Probably not. They're not very good. Maybe we can, I guess. But whatever. Sebastian Guanzotti didn't really have anything going for him. Again, I feel like their best players.
At least we did not get that goal.
Yeah, I was expecting him to score for sure. He tried to draw a couple penalties. You remember those moments? He kind of went down pretty easy. So it was kind of.
I think Dan Antonino even highlighted it when he was watching it. He put that on Twitter.
Yeah, I mean that was pretty funny to see, but I'm glad he didn't get that call like he did in the first game. With all due respect to Seba, I love you. Come on, man. Like, what was that? Anyway, and that was the second half. I mean, I kind of summed it up from 45 to 90 between the Charlie Dennis shot and the Jan Ekra shot. Credit to our back line and to Connor Sparrow. Again, some decent stops. Forrest Lasso made some big stops as well. But again, nothing like insanely dangerous for either team on the night.
Yep.
That was the problem we highlighted in the pregame show. You remember, James? Indy only has 9 open play goals all year. And we did exactly what I said. I'm not crediting myself for that, by the way. It kind of sounded like that. I'm not saying we didn't commit any penalties or we didn't create too many set pieces for them or give them too many corners because of what I said on the pregame show. But it was nice to see that play out at least. Because most of their goals have come on set pieces, penalties, or corner kicks. which I guess is a set piece, but you get what I'm saying. So we did exactly what we should have done, which is play a decently clean game, except with that. You remember that tackle in the first half? Forrest Lasso just murdered somebody at half field line.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh God, who? I don't remember who it was now
I don't
though.
even
But
remember. I just remember he sent somebody flying, and I almost like spit out my discounted Berry House beer, onto my uncle who was there watching the game with me. But other than that, we played a clean game. Didn't give him any opportunities for free. So I liked that. Don't get me wrong. There's definitely positives to take away from the second half and the first half. It was clean. We knew not to commit the silly mistakes we've committed early on in the season. And I like to see that kind of progression happen. Maybe not the potential regression up top, but progression in terms of avoiding the silly errors we maybe became accustomed to a bit throughout this season. Anything else in the second half, James, or do we cover it? Like, I feel like there's just not much else to say other than
I don't.
I
I don't
hope.
have a ton else on this one, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean,
So
what else are we gonna say? Like, I hope we can kind of figure it out this weekend when we come home. Again, I can get ahead of the questions, and we can talk about, now it's been 2 games since Neil Collins left, right? Um, and John Stead, of course, coaching staff took a bit of a shift in that way. And yeah, I mean, I'm going to get ahead of the question and say that like Stuart Dobson is not really to blame for this or anything. Like he is putting out the lineups that we would have expected under Neil Collins. There's not
it's
much
almost
else
the
you can
same.
ask.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not much else you can ask of an interim head coach. He's asked about like, why didn't he start this guy instead of this guy, which is like fine. It's kind of your prerogative as a fan. But there's not really anything I would, question from this past weekend. I would say, like me personally, I would have liked to see JJ Williams and Cal Jennings together up top. Because I think it's a pretty dangerous role, especially with both of them kind of in form recently. JJ Williams maybe slowing down that almost MVP pace he had for like 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah.
But again, that was insane. You can't really keep that up. But they're both playing well. And I feel like there would be a good time. Now would be a good time to kind of get them to play well together. But again, that's why I'm not a head coach, I guess. And we'll see. I'm curious because I don't know. I'm kind of rambling, but we'll have to see what happens this season if Stuart Dobson stays throughout the season or if we're getting close to finding a new guy. I'm wondering what. I'm assuming some of the performance has to do with like the crazy shift in the middle of the season. I'm wondering what another shift, kind of like 3/4 through the season, might do if we end up changing head coaches again.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So, what do you think? I mean, do you have any comments on kind of the Neil Collins departure effect, or am I kind of making things up?
No,
Off the top of my head?
I mean, I think that it's just difficult for any team to go through a kind of transition in the middle of the season, regardless of
Yeah.
what the situation is. And obviously, I think Stuart Dobson's best play right now is to just continue to use the players that were being used in the same way beforehand. But yeah, it doesn't mean that there is any type of it doesn't mean that there's any type of um I guess like it's not down to something that he is not doing. I don't think that Stuart Dobson is leaving something on the table that Neil
Yeah.
Collins would have done. It's just and also, our streak that was ended last week against Birmingham Legion, 13 games without losing. Those do kind of just end every so often, obviously. That's the nature of it, but the one thing that I will say is this weekend in the post-game press conference, I will be asking Stuart Dobson if he would like to take on the head coaching role on a permanent basis. So I do have that question at least prepared, and we will get an answer for the folks of RBLR Sports, and hopefully there will be. I don't think that there's going to be an answer, but what I'm hopeful is that he will have like a definitive yes, I do or no, I don't kind of thing, because a lot of people just kind of, oh, well, whatever the owners think is best. And as much as I appreciate that, it's nicer to get an answer. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
that would be good. All right, Carlos. So
Why'd
we
you
have
say that? Now Like now Ryan Helfrich is listening to the podcast and he's going to tell Stu Dobson exactly what to say. And we're
Yeah,
going to be
true.
like, no, don't. Now you just told him our game plan. Damn it, James.
I should have withheld. Well, all right. I'll come up with
Too
some
late.
sort of decoy question beforehand. That's what I'll do.
All right. Yeah, put him off guard.
All right, Carlos. Our last thing for this game. Who was your man of the match? And if you want to say Barry House, you can, but we can't include it
Yeah.
on our statistics that we have ongoing each week.
We definitely could. Like we make the statistics. I don't know why we couldn't, but anyway, yeah, my man of the match is Connor Antley, for no particular reason other than he had a pretty decent game on the wing. He always has a decent game, but he had a good game, I guess is a better word for it. He had a good game. Stepped up when he had to. It was a big piece of the reason why Indy didn't have any, insanely dangerous opportunities on that right side. I guess their left side. You know what I mean? But Connor Antley on that right side has kind of been, he's always been good. But I mean, I've enjoyed seeing him kind of subtly progress his game a bit, add some offense to his repertoire in a way that I think is relatively recent. But his defense is always, or has, I guess, never been in question. His defensive abilities are always sound. In this game, I think it was a big part of the reason why him and the rest of the back line. So this is more of like a man in the match for everybody on the back line. I just gave Forrest Lasso one last time around. So it's Connor Antley's turn in this way.
There you go.
I think he shined a bit more out of all the backline guys in that way. So great for him, great for the back line. I love to see that defensively we are becoming sound in a way that was maybe a bit in question at the beginning of the year. Avoiding the mistakes that I've mentioned, the mistakes that kind of gave Indy that penalty in the first place at the end of the game. We're avoiding that. We're going back to the defensive soundness that we know. And that's a great thing because, even if our offense doesn't pick up, if our defense can keep a shutout every game, all you need is one goal. So, it's never going to happen every game. But Connor Antley's a big part of the reason why, at least it could, right?
Yep. I kind of was actually going in a pretty similar direction with mine. It was a defensive player as well, and I think that it just came down to his organization. My man of the match was Jordan Doherty. I think that he is doing very well overall this season, and I think that in particular this game, he did. It's all that stuff that, as the commentators say, doesn't show up in the stats. He's not going to get a goal very frequently. He's not going to get an assist very frequently. I would like him to, just as you said, I would like them to take some more strikes from outside the box. I'm sure Doherty has it in him. But I think that he did the organizational stuff very well. And that organization meant no goals for Indy. And so obviously I appreciate that. All right. Well, there are your men of the match, and we will move on. But before we do, I just want to say a quick shout out to shop.rblrsports.com. I bet you thought that you were done hearing about this, but no, we are back to the shop for RBLR Sports. If you think that you might need some new threads coming up this year, or just to finish out the rest of the season with the Rowdies, please head on over to shop.rblrsports.com and check out everything we've got going over there. There is a 10% off discount code that you can use. That code is COYR for Come On You Rowdies, just as we were chanting at Barry House this past weekend. But please check it out. There will be a link in the description, and I'm sure you will find something you like if you do. Carlos, if you can, please preview for us this game against Tulsa. Oh, and beforehand, I do want to say there are a couple more people out there with RBLR sports gear after this past weekend because of the watch party giveaways. So just keep that in mind, either for your own swag or your own future watch parties. On you go.
Yep. By the way, I've been guessing Jordan Doherty's getting on the score sheet every week. I'm gonna do the same for this game, by the way. So that's kind of a spoiler of it's coming. He's got the leg for it. He's got the ambition offensively for it. I want to see his offensive game a bit more, but whatever. This weekend the Rowdies are home for the first time in a little bit. It feels like it's been a while. It's FC Tulsa on Pride Night. Tulsa sits in 7th with 28 points from 21 games. We are in third. We slipped down to third after this weekend's draw with 35 points from 20 games. Tulsa have been in, quote, stunning form, according to James, recently, with 5 wins in their last 5 games. The definition of red hot, James. And this comes, the weekend prior to this winning streak. They lost 4-0 to Memphis 901, which is pretty funny to be able to bounce back like that and win 5 straight. Funny, but also impressive. They did what we were not able to do, by the way, which was a 1-0 win in Indianapolis back on July 8th. That being said, they've kind of been squeaking out results. They're not dominant in any way, but they're winning, and that's all that matters. Those 5 results include a 3-2 win against Detroit. Again, 1-0 versus Indy, 1-0 against Miami, 3-2 against Hartford, the worst team in the league, and 2-1 against Rio Grande Valley. I say all that to cast, a little bit of doubt on their insane streak and give all the listeners a bit of comfort in the fact that, they're playing well, to their credit. But I think it's performances that are kind of like scratching by. So whatever. I'm going to discount that and not say the wow that James included in our notes. But again, 5-game winning streak, 15 points and 15 possible points is very impressive. And James, you mentioned that a lot of this recent success has come from a recent move in the transfer market that we can mention here in a little bit. They have some formational flexibility, but they will likely have 4 at the back, anchored by Michael Nelson in net. Justin Malou, Rashid Tate, Ruxy, and Adam Armour started the last game in that back line. Eric Bird and Tommy McCabe were the central midfielders, with Milo Yosef, Moises Dyer, and Marcus Epps up top. Philip Goodrum is the danger man. Philip Goodrum, by the way, if you follow the world of USL soccer at all, he moved to Tulsa in late August after Memphis originally denied his chance to leave and go to Europe. It was a kind of a wild story, actually, how Memphis didn't let him leave for Europe. I think kind of a scummy move on their part, but whatever. He was unhappy, obviously. They traded him, and it worked out for him. He's got 7 goals so far in 2023, with 5 of those coming in the last 5 games. He's on fire. Again, all those games have been wins. He's not the only dangerous player, though. USF alum Marcus Epps, go Bulls, is on 6 goals. Milo Yosef on 3 goals. Moses Dyer is also on 3 goals. Dyer has 4 assists as well, with Epps and Goodrum on 2 assists to complement him. Blair Gavin has Tulsa doing well. We can definitely say that. We want to keep it going while we seem vulnerable. There's not really a better time, I guess, if you're an opponent, to pounce on the Rowdies team that's kind of trying to find its identity again from a few weeks ago. Bradley Bourgeois, Colin Fernandez, and Chris Pearson are all other names to keep an eye on. What a name, by the way, Bradley Bourgeois. It's crazy. Some great players in that roster I've just mentioned, Marcus Epps being one of them, a guy that I really wanted to see on our team sometime soon. Philip Goodrum is definitely the danger man to keep an eye on. He's a guy that I think we are going to have to focus on particularly, right? Keep an eye on him, maybe have a guy mark him throughout the whole game. He's one of those guys that if you can shut him down, there's a good chance you can shut the rest of the offense down for Tulsa. Again, a Tulsa team that's been scoring a lot of goals, but they've won their last 5 games. Again, yes. They've won every game by just 1 goal. Again, close games that could have gone the other way if one shot went, better for the other team. It's a good team. They're playing well. I think we have a good shot if we play how we've played in this middle part of the season before these 2 games.
Right.
That's to say, I'm thinking about how we played this past weekend. We're not going to get away with not scoring any goals. I feel like I hear Philip Goodrum. I think Memphis.
Yep.
Tulsa will not be as easy to kind of shut down in the same way. Again, they're a high-scoring team, especially in these last 5 games. Let me do the math really quickly. 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh my God, why am I bad at math? This is why I'm like a government major. 8 goals in their last 5 games. They have a good shot to put some goals by our back line, but our back line is playing well too. So it's kind of a battle of the strengths right here. Good offense, good defense. Good offense versus good defense. Sorry. What do you think is going to happen? What's going to give here, James? Do you think our stellar defensive performance from these past few games is going to shine through? Will Tulsa's firepower be enough to overcome that and, take away 3 points from our stadium?
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't think that Tulsa has the best defense overall. One player,
Sure.
Bradley Bourgeois that you mentioned, his middle name is Baladez, Baladez. I shouldn't know that, but I do. It's Bradley Baladez Bourgeois, so
Oh my
very
goodness.
interesting name. But yeah, anyway, to get back to their defense, obviously not so good. I think that we do have a chance to score here in this one, which would be good because we've gone 2 games now being shut out.
No.
Not a great record for the Tampa Bay Rowdies, of course, but I would also say that defensively they are just on or attacking wise, they are just on a tear right now.
No.
If we want to get into our predictions, I do have mine, but I do want to do one correction here. I noticed in the notes, Philip Goodrum moved from Tulsa in late May. It was. I don't know why I said August. I think that I was just
Yeah. It was at the
doing
beginning of the
something.
season, wasn't it?
But
Towards the
yeah,
beginning.
anyway, he moved to Tulsa in
Yeah.
late May from Memphis. So yeah, now he has had. I think he's had 2 doubles so far. So he's got 2 games that he scored 2 goals, and I think one of them was 2 penalties even. So this might be one of those other ones, Carlos, that comes down to like how many goals have they scored from open play. So I don't know. Regardless, I think that it'll be interesting, but I do want to say I think that this game ends 1-1.
Valid. I'm not going to say we don't win again. Like, I feel like not winning in 3 games is impossible for the kind of roster we have. We're at home. My prediction 3-1. 3-1
Okay.
Rowdies.
Okay.
I think we break the offensive slowdown here. Like you said, I'm not particularly scared of Tulsa's back line or anything. Yeah, it's a team that is, again, good offensively, maybe even great offensively at this point in the season. Like you said, 5 wins straight, 8 goals in 5 games. Good run, 5 goals in the last 5 games. They're going to score, and I don't really have much of a doubt about that. But I'm confident that I think our offense is going to come back into shape this week, no matter who starts up top or kind of how we line up. It just feels like, we're due for some goals. And I think this is the kind of team that, we can make that happen against. Again, they let up 2 goals at home to Hartford. Not a great team. Rio Grande put a goal on them. Detroit scored 2 on them. Detroit kind of sucks. So I feel like if Detroit and Hartford can put up multiple goals on them, then the Tampa Bay Rowdies, the best team in the league, the best roster in the league, I think should be able to put up a few goals on them. So I'm going to say 3-1. We win by 2. And Jordan Doherty gets on the score sheet. He's going to rip one from outside the box in like the 77th minute with 28 seconds exactly. It's going to be off of a corner kick. The ball bounces out to him. The Tulsa goalie punches the ball out, and Jordan Doherty's going to half volley it off of the bounce. It's going to be incredible. And it's going to
Okay.
fly right into the upper 90 top right side of the goal.
Okay.
On the mob end, not on the far side by the theater. Mark it here. It will happen. I talked to somebody who came from the future yesterday, so they told me exactly how it's going to go.
Well, there you have it, folks. If it doesn't happen, you know who to come after. On the other side, Producer Eureka has put up a 2-0 Rowdies win. So just keep that one in mind. And our guest spot for the week goes to Peter Delos at Pete_DB on Twitter. 2-1 win to the Rowdies, so says Peter Delos. So thank you
Yep.
for helping us out, everyone there. And Carlos, let's get into our extra time segment because I think we've beaten this Tulsa game to death as far as we can for tonight anyway.
Yep.
So, Carlos, this past weekend, not only did we, RBLR Sports, host a watch party for the Rowdies,
That was
we
fun.
had a bunch of people from all over RBLR Sports there, so that was really cool.
Mhm.
And as much as they might not have got to see the best soccer on tap, there were a ton of other games this past weekend that were absolutely nuts. So, yeah, on Friday nights, 2 games were going on simultaneously that I think gripped American soccer. The U.S. women's national team started at 9. They beat Vietnam 3-1. And after that, it was, or no, during, I should say, Inter Miami was playing in the League's Cup versus Cruz Azul of Mexico.
Yeah.
Why does that matter to us? Well, I guess in the
It
broadest
doesn't.
sense, it doesn't. But a certain someone was making his debut for his new MLS team and happened to score his first goal. It was a last minute, literally, I think possibly the last kick of the game winner for Lionel Messi on his debut for Inter Miami. So just a wild weekend, even despite a kind of boring 0-0 draw for the Rowdies.
Yeah.
Carlos, did you get to see any of those live? I was at a concert with my wife, so I took it all in via Twitter and then afterwards.
Yeah. I did not. I saw the video on Twitter after. Pretty cool. I am excited like anybody should be that Lionel Messi is playing in the United States of America. I think it's a good sign for US soccer. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. It is cool. He scored a nice goal in the League Cup, which as a tournament I think is really silly. But it's cool to see him score. By the way, I mean that tournament is absolutely bonkers for all like the most CONCACAF reasons ever.
Yes.
Like, there's a team from Mexico, and I'm forgetting which team it is, and they're like stuck at an airport somewhere. I
Leon.
think they were. Is it Leon? And are they
Yeah.
playing today?
They
Or
were
is it
supposed to
tomorrow?
be. The game was delayed until tomorrow because of
Oh,
that.
they ended up delaying it. Okay, yeah, I mean, like flight delays, penalty kick scores that end up being like 16-15. It was I forgot what game that was too. Just like insane stuff. I mean, did you see the tweet that Atlas put out? Oh my goodness! Like Atlas is like quoting like a Nazi official from the 40s, just like absolute the most random stuff you could ever see is happening in the League's Cup. It's crazy, it's crazy, and there's been like dumb headlines and also like bad headlines, like what came out from that last Twitter account. So weird stuff going on in that tournament. I'm glad the main headline though was Lionel Messi scoring his first goal. It was a nice goal, and again, really cool, really cool. Such like a fever dream, by the way, seeing like Serena Williams and like LeBron James and like Kim Kardashian, just like watching the game where Lockhart Stadium used to be,
Yeah.
where the
And
Rowdies.
now instead there's this modular stadium.
God, it's just. I think that stadium, the whole situation is just kind of reminiscent, or kind of sums up what I don't like about the state of soccer in the U.S. But I'm not going to dim on it. It's for another hour-long episode.
There we go.
The big point is soccer is doing well. People like the sport here, and generally, that's a good thing. I think we can move on. Did I mention everything in the Leagues Cup? That was all the insane headlines, right?
I think so.
There's
If we want to
bunch of
get back,
crazy stuff.
if we want to get back to other more positive soccer, like we said already, the U.S. women's national team beat Vietnam. Obviously,
Yeah.
very positive there. Their next
Nice.
game, well, because we're recording Tuesday night, if you are listening when it comes out, then the game will be tonight at 9 p.m. So my wife and I will be tuning in for that. Everyone, please watch the U.S. hopefully get 3 points against the Netherlands. It is a rematch of the 2019 World Cup final, if anyone is unaware of that. So, yeah, very exciting narrative off the bat, let alone the fact that it is the U.S. women's national team that we all hopefully love. And just to round out the women's soccer, because we have a little bit more, Carlos, you talked about this actually on the live stream as part of our pregame preview when we were at Berry House, but there
Yeah.
is news with the Tampa Bay USL team on the women's Super League, on the Super League side. But if you keep an eye out on the RBLR Sports feed, you will see our women's soccer podcast starting up. They should be coming out, I believe, this week. If Eureka has steered me correctly, then yeah, they will be out later this week. And yeah, just keep an eye out. We will have some actual in-depth analysis from people who have, looked into this more than just an article's worth, like maybe myself at this point. But I am looking for, I'm one of the people who's looking for that extra analysis. And if you are too, then you can tune in here and get it, like I will be.
Yeah. There's no better time, I think, to be talking about this team in Tampa, this new women's team coming to Tampa, because, again, the excitement of the Women's World Cup is going on right now. How about the Philippines, by the way? I saw this last night. The Philippines, I woke up this morning, I saw the Philippines beat New Zealand at home in the World Cup. Philippines, I think, is like the second lowest, or like the lowest ranked team that qualified for the World Cup. That's pretty cool. That's a side note. But that being said, the excitement of the World Cup happening at the same time as we're talking about this USL Super League news with the Tampa team. Pretty cool stuff. Again, I think part of the excitement for me is that we don't really know anything else about the team other than who the president and the head coach are.
Yeah.
We don't know what the branding is going to look like. They've kind of used,
which hopefully should be out soon.
Yeah. Branding, they've kind of used orange, but I don't think that's indicative of what the team's going to look like.
Unless they're going creamsicle, that would be weird.
That would be so weird. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's right. The league color is orange, so I don't think it's indicative of anything. We don't know where they're going to play, right? It's not a Rowdies team technically, but again, I wouldn't even be surprised if, like, while they're building a stadium, if they're trying to play next year, it wouldn't be surprising to me if they work out some sort of agreement with the Rowdies and play next season at least at Outlaying Stadium while they work to build their own venue. Or total speculation. I mean, I don't see where else they would be able to play while they're building a stadium.
I was thinking maybe UT, but then you get the problem of playing on turf, and I know that.
Yeah,
I'm sure they will want to avoid playing on turf. So I really can't think of any other options. I'm not sure.
Yeah, Pepin Stadium is pretty cool. Pepin Stadium at UT is pretty cool. Again, Eureka giving us a note that USF's Corvette Field could be fitted for the minimum attendance. I personally, I think I love Corvette Field, but I think it'd make more sense for it to be somewhere like UT, if they're playing a temporary season there, or even Outlaying if they can pull that off, because I feel like USF is just a little bit kind of out there.
Yeah,
not a very central
that's
location.
actually where the concert was on Friday night, and I'll tell you, the drive was not my favorite part.
Yeah, if you're kind of in downtown Tampa or kind of out in like West Tampa, where I am, around the border with Pinellas, it can be a little bit of a drive, kind of out there. Not much else around there except except USF. Cool area. I love the stadium, but ideally, hopefully, it's entirely personal opinion. It's not really up to me, I guess, right? It just seems like
not yet, anyway.
Yeah, right. You guys don't know, I actually got hired as owner. I don't know. I just bought the team. Whatever. Yeah, I mean, it's cool stuff. It's cool to kind of speculate on what's going to happen. It's cool to speculate on what the potential relationship or lack thereof is going to be with Tampa Bay Rowdies, given that this has been the face of professional soccer in Tampa Bay for a long time. So yeah, it's cool to think about what's going to happen and kind of how that dynamic's going to be. But again, the more soccer, the merrier. And I'm really excited to see this happen. And I say the more soccer, the merrier. But then I did some random reading, by the way, side note tangent, about like VSI Tampa Bay. You remember that?
God, yes, I do.
That was not merrier. That was not merrier.
Or the what's the not indoor league team that played at like the Youngling Center for this past year, and they were not paying their players anyway.
Was it the Tampa Bay Strikers, right?
The Strikers,
the team that was coached by Martin Gramatica.
Strikers, yes.
Yeah. I
maybe that's a little less merry.
Yeah, I forgot about them. So, yeah, no, I mean, VSI Tampa Bay, what a weird story. I want to do some investigating into that because I think it was all like a scheme. But that being said, women's soccer
would be an
great.
interesting history
Women's
to
World
do.
Cup. Yeah, exactly right. It's just a great time for women's soccer and across the world, honestly. So it's really cool to talk about women's soccer here in Tampa Bay and what that's going to look like in the near future. Um, yeah, I just ranted a lot about the USL Super League team, but it's cool. It's exciting stuff, and I know we're going to be covering it well. The folks at the RBLR podcast covering them. Um, it's cool stuff. It's cool stuff. I mean, I have so many questions, and I guess we'll just have to wait to see how they're answered in real time, right?
Yeah, exactly. But for now, Carlos, I think that should do it for us this week. I think that we've covered everything we can related to the Rowdies and not related to them. But yeah, thank you, listeners, for tuning in. We obviously always appreciate when you do. Please follow RBLR Sports on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at RBLR Sports. We are also on Threads. I believe Eureka has said Mastodon. Maybe there's another one that I'm not aware of. Maybe that Blue Sky or whatever. If you want to follow us, I'm pretty sure we're there. I am also on Twitter, though. I am at RBLR James K. What about you, Carlos?
At Carlos DPA10 on Twitter. Just tweeted about how excited I am that my team Ecuador, Liga Deportiva Universitaria de Quito, just signed Pablo Guerrero, one of the best Peruvian soccer players of all time. Kind of old, but he's a great striker.
I did not know that.
Yeah, he's really excited to see him coming here or going there in Quito. That's a really fun piece of note, I guess, if you're interested in South American soccer and you want to watch Ecuadorian soccer. Yeah, keep an eye on Liga. It's a team that's had everything they've needed all season. They've just been missing one main striker. I think they found their guy.
That's a pretty good one.
Yeah, they could make a run at the Sudamericana, honestly. Like, they have the team for it. So, exciting time for me. Exciting time for the world of soccer. So, come follow me. Come learn about Ecuadorian soccer if you want. At Carlos TPA10.
And please like and subscribe to our podcast. Of course, we are on YouTube where you can get the full experience and see our faces, even if this week I am kind of in shadow because I'm facing the wrong way. But other than
I'm
that,
huge, though. Come look at my build.
Yeah, you can also listen to us on Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio app, wherever you listen to podcasts. But thank you for listening. Come on, you Rowdies.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.